Dear young minister, salvation is free, but ministry is expensive, okay? My name is Simi Deleawe, and I am the host of the Dear Young Minister podcast. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you guys for joining me again. I know I do this all the time, but I really value the fact that you guys are taking time out of your personal lives to lock into this podcast. One of the lies that the enemy told me, and one of the reasons it took me so long to even release this podcast is the fact that I genuinely thought that nobody cared. I genuinely thought that there really wasn't like a big market for this, or like nobody would really listen to this. And so once I got over that lie, right, and even if like, and who is nobody, right, and like even if only one person listens to this and they go out and do what God told them to do, like that is sufficient enough for me. So once I got over that, I honestly just began to say, okay, what if nobody listens? That's the worst thing that can happen. At least I was obedient and did exactly what God asked me to do. So the fact that you guys show up and y'all listen to this pod really does make me just feel like, okay, there is an audience for this. Like this is information that people actually really do need to know. And so thank you. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. If you think that this pod could be a blessing to anybody else, once again, I don't think it's for everyone. Not everybody is at this stage in their life where they're like, I need to walk in the purpose of God for my life if I'm going to continue to live. If you're not there yet, maybe this pod is not for you. But if you know anybody who could benefit from this pod, I want to encourage you to send this pod to them, send this YouTube channel to them. Wherever you listen on, whatever they listen on, it's probably available for them. So please just share the love. Do not gatekeep. Share the love, okay? Dear young minister, okay, ministry is going to cost you. Ministry is expensive and people do not count the cost. There's a parable that Jesus gave in scripture, and he literally talked about the fact that who begins to build a house without counting the cost? For if you do not count the cost before you start building a house, you will get to the middle of the house. You will be halfway done with the house and realize that I don't have enough materials. I don't have enough resources. I don't know if I can finish this house. And that's just not a good look, right? I think that as people who are called by God as ministers of the gospel, you must be able to count the cost. What are you signing up for? Now, I'm going to be real with y'all and say that I had no idea what I was signing up for. And part of it was because I've never seen anybody do what God was asking me to do. Not that it didn't exist. I just personally hadn't seen it. And so I didn't know that I was literally signing up to low-key be a pastor. Listen, I was signing up to be a pastor at the age of 18, 19, right? I had no idea, right, that being on campus leading these Bible studies would make people come to me for prayer every time they felt like they couldn't pray for themselves. It would make people feel like I was a safe place to, express their deepest, darkest emotions. And I'm not even saying that I didn't appreciate that because it was a level of honor. I'm just saying that I don't think I was ready. I don't think I was ready for the responsibility and the cost of leadership, the cost of ministry, the cost of walking in the purpose and the assignment and the vision that God has for me. And so I was not prepared. I did not count the cost, and it showed. It showed. And one of the ways that it showed was in the fact that I couldn't for the life of me understand why people would feel comfortable praying with me, but they wouldn't feel comfortable going out with me, hanging out with me, going out to dinner, going out to a party. I was trying to figure out, how do I enjoy my college life and still do the work that God has asked me to do? I just did not believe that God would be asking me to give up the college experience. I already lived in a house where I was sheltered for majority of my time in that house, right? I lived in a house where I could only go to church and nowhere else. And anything that wasn't school or church was pretty much a no, right? Growing up with my parents. And so I was ready to explore. I was ready to have fun. I was ready to walk in freedom, right? But I didn't realize that when I said yes to this ministry of called Haven, when I said yes to being having this Bible study, that I was also giving up my rights to have the college experience that I always saw on TV, that I always imagined I would have, that I look forward to having even when I was in my parents' house, talking about, yeah, when I get to college, I'm gonna just do what I want. No, I still wasn't able to do what I wanted. Y'all, it was so bad. Like, I really tried to live the double life, and I only could do it for like 2 years before God got me all the way together and said, are you done? Like, are you done deceiving yourself? And reflecting on that, and looking back on even just like the journey God brought me through, from being the person that was like, I'm going to go and have a good time and be in this worldly environment, and party and be around drinking but not drink, and be around twerking, loving to dance, twerking on my own but not really trying to give anybody a roll up. Like, it was just a really hard like balance. And I'm just like, bruh, one day I looked at myself, and it was like South by Southwest. I was on 6th Street with some friends, and I was like, why am I here? Why am I here? These are not my people. This is not my vibe. I don't fit in here. Why am I here? Y'all, that was the last time I was on 6th Street. Okay. And if you're in Austin, Texas, or if you understand Austin, Texas, then you just know. But that was the last time I was on 6th Street. And the truth was that I had not counted the cost. Okay. I did not count the cost to what I said yes to. And so I was reading, and this is a book I recommend y'all. Like, okay, so on the last pod, I talked about the fact that if you are going to be sent by force, you need resources, you need a community, you need leadership training, you need all these things. I want to recommend this book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. It is a red and black book, an amazing, amazing, amazing book. I found this book about 2 years ago, and I wish I found it when I was like 19 years old, because it gives me so much context to leadership that I could have never even imagined on my own. In fact, looking at this book now, I was like, dang, I went through that. And if I had this book, I would have handled it so different. I would have handled it so much differently. I think that one of the things that this book opened my eyes to is the power of knowledge. Like, what? Like, I can only imagine how different my life would have been if I had found, my leadership would have been if I had found this book earlier. So it's okay. I am putting you guys on game. Please, it's going to be, my affiliate link is going to be in the show notes below, because if you're going to buy it and watch Dear Young Minister podcast, you might as well support the cause. Okay. So please click on my affiliate link in the show notes below, in the comments below. One thing that I really got from this book, I believe it's chapter 17 or 18, is the fact that ministry is going to cost you. It is expensive. And if you are not willing to pay the cost or the price, you will be disappointed. And it's not a price that you can negotiate. You don't get to haggle the price down. Like, it is something that you're going to have to say, okay, this is the cost of me saying yes to the calling of God upon my life. I have to let go of some bad habits. I have to make sure that I am not getting caught up in things that I used to get caught up in when I didn't understand the calling of God upon my life. I did not realize how real the spiritual attack would be as a leader. I didn't realize how real the attack on my mind would be as a leader. Sometimes it wasn't even the devil. Sometimes it was me versus me. I felt like I wasn't qualified. I felt like I wasn't, who am I? Why am I? What do I know, right? That I'm leading these people. It wasn't even enemy work. It was literally me versus me, trying to convince myself that I am not supposed to be here. And so there were so many things that I felt like God really needed to deal with within me, because I did not count the cost. I did not know what I had signed up for. And so halfway through, I needed to almost like borrow, okay, like get information. I needed to figure things out, because I was like, this is what I signed up for. This is what I just said yes to. And so one thing that I saw in this book that I think is so impactful is the fact that as your responsibilities increase as a leader, your rights decrease. Right? I want you to think about it almost like a chart with the y-axis and an x-axis. As your responsibilities increase, your rights decrease. And so now I am responsible for more people. I have more influence. Another way to think about it is as your influence increases, your rights decrease, that I am mindful of the things that I am putting on social media. I am mindful of the way that I carry myself. I may have to understand that even though things are permissible, they may not be beneficial for the calling of God upon my life. And so I may not be able to wear that, and I may not be able to go there, and I may not be able to say that, and I may not be able to respond like that. And I may have to be the bigger person in 9 out of 10 situations. But I must understand that leadership is going to cost me. It's going to cost me my rights to be right. Okay. It's going to cost me my rights to defend myself. That sometimes, even when God calls you, you must understand that this thing is going to require you to let go of your ego, let go of your pride, go and forgive, go and love, go out of your way to not clap back. Okay. Like there's so many things that you must understand, that leadership and influence and ministry is not cheap. It is expensive, but you have all the tools that you need to pay the price. It is expensive, but it's not too expensive for you. Because when God called you, he equipped you. And when God called you, he gave you everything that you need to live a godly life. And so I want you to know, as a laborer, as a minister, as somebody who is called by God, that this labor is work. This labor is not cheap. This labor will cost you, but you have everything that you need to pay the price. You just have to tap into it. And so God has dealt with me over the years with this particular reality. One of the things that I realized God made me do when I started to lead people was he started having me ask myself this question. And I'm almost hesitant to say this because a part of this is I know people who will say, well, you shouldn't really care what other people think. And as much as I understand that sentiment, I have to let you know that as a leader, you have a responsibility to people. Once again, this is labor, minister, serving people, making sure that you are doing everything to ensure that you are leading people to Jesus and not away from him, even if it's not intentional. Because you can unintentionally lead people away from Jesus, right? That is why you must be sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit, because even in the way that I dressed, in the way that I spoke, in the way that I led, in the way that I responded, God made me really evaluate the things that I did that influenced people. And God made me go back and apologize. He made me change some outfits and throw things away. He made me consider even the way I was stewarding my finances. He made me check myself. He made me do a personal evaluation, not because there was anything that was necessarily a sin, but he needed me to understand that this is no longer about you. I know a lot of people will say that, well, I don't live for people. I live, I don't have to live to, please people, and everybody's always going to have an opinion. If you support them, they are for you. One day they're for you, one day they're against you, all that good stuff. Well, I definitely understand that, right? I definitely believe in living for an audience of one, which is Jesus. And I also believe in being mindful of the people that you are leading and making sure that you do not lead them astray. And so we have to be mindful about the way that we lead, the way that we serve others, the way that we carry ourselves. We have to be mindful that we are not just allowing ourselves to just be, to do anything, to say anything, to post anything, but we are mindful of the fact that we are called by God. And the fact that I am called by God means that I have a responsibility to people, and I have to lead people in a way that glorifies God. And so if God tells you, hey, I need you to not say this because this post on Twitter or this post on social media could be detrimental to somebody who is not fully knowledgeable about the truth, you have to be mindful and say, maybe I shouldn't say it, even though it would have been funny, even though it would have gotten laughs, even though people would have liked it. I have to be mindful that God is sending me to serve people. And if there are people who will draw away from Christ because of what I said, then maybe I need to reconsider and not say it. There's a cost to ministry. There's a cost to leadership. Sometimes the cost looks like you having to revamp even what you allow yourself to listen to. Because if God is going to use you, he needs to make sure that what you're putting into your system is holy and righteous and pure. That what you're putting into your system is not something that can pollute the good work that he's trying to do in you. And so I remember when I first got saved, I share this with my students a lot, but God began to deal with the music selection that I had. He began to deal with the secular music. And please do not get me wrong, okay? I am not here to say that you shouldn't listen to secular music. I do believe that your music should be wholesome. I do believe that your music should not promote wickedness. It shouldn't promote promiscuity. It shouldn't promote idolatry, right? I do believe that. But I want to be very clear that when God dealt with me, he dealt with me in a very drastic way. He told me that I could only listen to Christian music. And I did that for about a year. And I knew that the reason God did that was because he needed to purge me. He needed to purge me for that year. He needed to get me in a space where there was no loophole for the enemy to infiltrate my thoughts, because the reason that I hadn't been able to live a life that was godly and set apart the first 4 times that I gave my life to Christ was the fact that I did not have I was listening to things that was not drawing me closer to God. Instead of listening to the word, instead of imbibing the word, instead of being so filled with the things of God, I was spending my time, my energy, my resources listening to things that was not coinciding with the word of God. And so God had to train me in that way. And so that was something that it was a price I had to pay, because I really liked my music. I am such a music girl. I am a creative at heart. And so I love my music, but I needed to know that even in my song selection, I needed to glorify God in that. I needed my mind to be so renewed that it took a drastic measure, like only listening to Christian music, right? Now, that's pretty much all I listened to. But at that time, when I was 17, 18 years old, it was a drastic measure. I remember when I was on campus and God would have me fast every Wednesday and fast for the ministry, fast for myself as a leader. He would have me do 3-day, dry fast. And I literally this is so besides the point, but I was fasting to the point that I ended up getting my appendix removed because it was about to rupture, and I was getting like appendicitis, and I had to go to like the hospital and have a surgery on campus. Like it was that bad, because once again, I had a lot of zeal, very little knowledge. God was helping me, but I was having to pay the price. I was having to understand that this thing is not cheap. It's going to cost you. And so if you are having a hard time paying the price, if you're having a hard time letting go of the things that you used to do when you were not really in alignment with the calling of God upon your life, if you're having a hard time saying no to certain friendships and no to certain things that God is calling you away from, maybe certain TV shows or certain types of music that God is calling you away from, I have come to encourage you and let you know that what is on the other side of your obedience is so much better than whatever you think you're letting go of. What is on the other side of your obedience is so much greater. It's so much more fulfilling than whatever you think you're letting go of. Ministry will cost you, but it's worth it. Ministry will cost you, but it's a bang for your buck, okay? Ministry will cost you, but it's going to make you a better version of yourself. It'll make you the version of yourself that can actually carry the prophetic word upon your life, okay? I want you to know that this thing is not cheap. If anybody says it's easy, if anybody says it's super exciting all the time, they're not telling you the truth. But when people begin to tell you like, no, no, it actually made me reevaluate my family life, and it made me go back and forgive people, and it made me change the way I spoke and the way I dress and the way I behaved, then they are telling the truth, because they understand that when God calls you, he calls you where you are today, but he doesn't ever call you so that you stay there. He calls you so that you can give him the ability to transform you into the person that he needs you to be in order to carry the apostolic assignment on your life, and the mission and the vision and the commission upon your life. Like, he is calling you so that you can be the version of yourself that he always knew you could be. I want you to know that any version of yourself outside of Christ is not the real you. That is a counterfeit version of you. Any version of yourself outside of the will of God, outside of the assignment of God that God has over your life, is not the real you. I know that's the person that you're used to. I know that's the person that you've gotten comfortable with, but I know that the real you is waiting on the other side of your obedience. The real you is waiting on the other side of your sacrifice. I found myself praying for people when I wish I could be asleep. I found myself driving to people just so I could check up on them, even though I personally was not necessarily feeling it that day, right? I found myself waking up in the middle of the night in order to intercede on behalf of a people. And I know that these things seem like, oh, well, that's just your job. But guys, you must understand that the work of a minister is not always comfortable. And so even though it's something that is done with joy, it's also done in a place of, it can be done in a place in times when we are frustrated. It can be done in times when we are like, God, I'm praying for people. Their prayers are getting answered. My prayers are not. Like, this thing is real. It'll cost you. And I want you to know that everything that it cost you, God has given you. Okay? I need you to imagine going to a store and they're saying, yeah, your bill is $1,000, and God literally gives you the $1,000 and says, here, go ahead and pay. Like, I need you to know that the cost is not something that you have to, the price, okay, is not something that you have to pay on your own. Okay, you don't have to manufacture the ability. You don't have to manufacture the capacity. You don't have to manufacture the strength. You serve a God with all power in his hands. And he says, I am giving it to you. I am giving you everything you need in order to pay the price. But you cannot be afraid of the cost. You cannot be afraid of what God is requiring of you. God is giving you the grace to say no to the TV show, because he's calling you to a place where the things that fill your mind are not things of this world. He's calling you to say, okay, maybe I need to let go of certain outfits and certain pieces, articles of clothing, because this no longer looks like the person that God is molding me to be. He's giving you the grace to say no to those things. He's not just saying, oh, you should just do it in your own strength. He's saying that I've given you all the power and the desire to do what pleases me. And so I want to encourage you that you are not alone, that the army and the host of people, okay, who are also walking in the assignment and the calling of God upon their life. We are together. We are saying no together. We are sacrificing together. We are paying the cost together, because we all have the same founder. Okay, we all have the same source. We all have the same provider. And so I want you to feel confident in the fact that no matter what God asks you to do, no matter what he asks you to stop doing, no matter what he asks you, no matter the cost that he asked you to pay, there is so much provision for you. And on the other side of your obedience is the glory. My God, on the other side of your obedience, you'll begin to see why it was so worth it to pay the cost, to pay the price, to say yes to God. All right, guys, that's it for today. Dear Young Minister, salvation is free, but ministry will cost you. It will. But don't worry. You are called and you are equipped, and God has already paid the price. See y'all next time. Bye.